Hi everybody, I'm Jenny Pearse and this is the Jenesis Gems Podcast. Enjoy this next episode. Welcome everybody to the Jenesis Gem Podcast. We're doing things a little bit different this time around. We're flipping the script and I'm stepping out of the host role and stepping into the guest position, and I have a really I think a pretty special person interviewing me today. Welcome Hayley Pearse from Caboodle Financial Services.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be a part of this huge project you've been running for a few years.
Well, for those of you that don't know, and I probably have told nearly everybody, Hayley is actually my daughter and she is a financial advisor. So she has a very unique position in respect to the questions she's going to be asking me today. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm in for. I've kind of just left it to her. So over to you, Hayley.
Fantastic. Well, we were sitting down over a glass of wine thinking, who could your next podcast guest be? And we thought, well, why don't we interview you for the podcast? Given you were such a huge part of me becoming an advisor, moving into the financial advice industry, I thought it would be pretty awesome to hear about your journey. How did you get into the financial services marketing space? And was that always the plan?
Well, no, it wasn't always the plan. So 2006, Genesis was born. So we obviously have recently celebrated a birthday, and next year will be my 2 decades in the marketing game. But I did start out in a marketing and administrative role in the self-managed super fund side of things. So it kind of gave me this little insight into the power of what financial advice can do and superannuations and structures and strategies. And that sort of helped me go, okay, there's a whole world out here I know nothing about and I need to know more. And a lot of the people I was working with at the time were financial advisors. I was simply doing setups. I wasn't necessarily, giving advice or doing anything like that. I was just involved in an industry, in the industry in that way. And that sort of took me down the path of when I stepped into Genesis in 2006 going, okay, these people need some serious help letting people know about them. So it just went from there.
I guess coming in from a completely green space to now moving into financial services, you would have seen so many different aspects of the industry. What is exciting you the most about working within this space?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's lots of things that excite me about working within the financial services sector, and really the primary reason that I chose to specialize in working with financial advisors, accountants, etc., was the fact that they have this incredible impact. They can change the course of someone's life. And for me, I learned that lesson really early on just through my own personal experiences, my parents' experiences for the lack of advice, things like that. And it just taught me that, there's not enough people that know about them. So I just felt, I guess I just became a champion. That was really it. I just decided that if no one else was going to do it, then I needed to be one that would. And that it was, if there was a way that I could improve the impact of what a financial advisor does, then that was my mission.
Yeah, okay. And then, so what is it that helps make people make this stuff more engaging and more relatable to their clients? As we know, financial services can often feel quite complex. Well, for advisors, marketing can feel quite complex. How do you then flip that around to make finance more understanding for people through the marketing?
Yeah, look, I believe in the phrase elegant simplicity. I think, sometimes as an industry and having, worked within a licensee for a period of time and understanding the role of compliance, I really found that, sometimes we get so caught up in the red tape and so caught up in over explaining things. And sometimes that's actually the last thing that, we really need. So, Seth Godin was really good at saying be a problem understander, not a problem solver. And I feel like that those that have particularly excelled in this industry, in this profession, have really got their game face on by making sure that they're talking about the fact that they understand the problem, and not really trying to solve it in an inappropriate forum. The time to solve it is when the client is sitting across from you and you're talking to them about their SOA. So for me, the marketing should come from a place of problem understanding. It should always come from a place of high emotional intelligence and very, very focused on the lifestyle of the people that you're dealing with. That's where I think that's the key to me from my perspective.
I guess in financial services, we're all dealing with different styles of clients, different niches, different segments. How do you work out which platform is the best one for you? Which marketing channel? Me being a young person, I know what channels and platforms I frequent, but how do I work out what's right for the customers that I'd like to serve?
Yeah, look, that's also there's a couple of things I would say to that. It depends upon what you're trying to achieve. So, in other words, what's the purpose of the marketing? B, it depends upon you as an individual. Some people absolutely loathe social media and never want to step a foot onto it. Others will simply embrace it and will go hard in respect of wanting to do activity on social media. And then probably the third thing is, where are the people that you want to do business with? So if they're not particularly a type of clientele that necessarily frequent, Instagram or frequent Facebook or frequent TikTok, then, they may be more approachable through an email marketing strategy. So we really spend a lot of time when we meet with our clients, particularly when we're onboarding and going through the discovery process, and really sort of, I guess, doing a deep dive to find out, well, where are your clients and what have they already told you that you perhaps know that you just don't realize. So it's up to us to extrapolate that information out of our clients so we can do the best for them.
Is there a market where people don't have to have a social media presence, or is that not possible?
Look, we have got a couple of clients that just actually really don't feel they have a need for it. I will say one thing. I think that, in a world where technology and AI advancement, Google searches do have a place, that we do need to have a digital footprint. I don't think that means you need to be on every platform. I mean, I've seen quite a number of clients go, okay, this platform's not for me. I don't want to be on that platform, and that's all okay. But, it's very rare that we would get a client that wouldn't have a LinkedIn profile, because it's almost as powerful as a Google search these days. So
Yeah.
it's really important to have some type of digital footprint. It just might be that you would use that more to be recognized and be seen for your, who you are and what you do, and to work in conjunction with your website, rather than it be about, a lead magnet or a lead source for you.
Right. Okay. You just touched on, the digital footprint. When you started 19 years ago, that didn't exist. I guess
You just aged me.
more just saying the evolution. Good on you. More the evolution of marketing over the last 19 years, let alone the last 5 years. In that period, you would have seen so many different campaigns and projects. Is there one that stands out as particularly fantastic, or one that was incredibly successful for you?
Oh gosh, over that 19 years, there's look, in my very early days, I did an incredible campaign for a husband and wife that was setting up. They would go out, when you're doing an insurance policy, how you have to do your medical checks and all that sort of thing. And they set up a business to go out and do the pathology, to take the bloods and things like that. So if you couldn't get to the doctors, that was back in the days when that was okay to do. So, and this was a standing start. This was a business that had no presence, it just didn't exist. And all of a sudden, and it just went crazy. That business was it was based in Newcastle, and it was just literally word of mouth. Even email wasn't a really huge thing at that point. It was all direct mail campaign, all telephones. It was wine and cheese events. It's right through to today, where I look at campaigns that we do, particularly a campaign that we've done for a 30 plus year old business that where we did a brand refresh, and the faith that the board of directors and the shareholders put in us, in taking them on the journey to refresh their branding, whole new website, whole new messaging, refreshing their value statements, their CVPs. It was just so exciting because the feedback from their clients blew them out of the water. And, yes, we did some social media in that, but most of that was just, really engaging with their existing clients, and their referrals went through the roof. And it was just such a pleasurable experience to watch their excitement. I found that really exciting. I found that really invigorating. And there's dozens of stories like that. But again, that was very much in a different world back to when I started out, where with the little pathology business, that everything was, face to face or over the phone, or, dare I say, a fax machine, So 20 years is a long time. And I've seen a lot change, definitely.
I can definitely, hear in your voice and see on your face just how much it lights you up being a part of these campaigns that really create, some transformations for businesses. And it would have been amazing, but I'm sure there's been times where it's gone a bit belly up. On the flip side, what maybe didn't quite go as planned? What did you learn from it, I guess?
Look, I mean, I think in any business, you can have negative experiences. You've got to have the right fit. And sometimes, every business owner we don't listen to our gut instinct, and we take on a client that doesn't necessarily fit our style of business. And, I had a scenario like that. This is, quite a few years ago. And, the buy-in was just non-existent, built a website, did a brand refresh, did all these things. And to this day, not a single ounce of it was ever launched, because they just did not buy into the process. They just, they signed off on it and approved it, but just refused to switch, flick the switch on any of it, and paid their bills. But we just agreed, look, I'm obviously not the right person for you, and you aren't the right people for us. And that's okay. And, there's no ill will. We're very respectful. I still see them in the industry. But, it was just such an unfortunate thing, because I dare say, a lot of it was to do with the right time and the right place. But yeah, heartbreaking. That broke my graphic designer's heart as much as it broke mine. So,
But I guess that's in any industry, we as advisors see that in financial services, you can build the most perfect plan to help someone achieve their goals. But ultimately it requires buy-in from the client to be committed to that plan. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
100%.
I was curious to know how you strike the balance with all of the compliance. You touched on it earlier with the red tape. Us as advisors, depending on your licensee structure, the rules can, vary with how conservative or strict they may be. And ultimately, advisors want to do the right thing. But how do you strike that balance between, being creative within your marketing, but also respecting the compliance obligations that we as advisors have?
Look, I think the advantage of having worked within a licensee and understanding, the rules and regulations, and I make an absolute point of keeping abreast of the regulatory guides and what's happening in the industry. So, I guess from my perspective, I always, there's a time and a place to speak about advice in its entirety, and that's not necessarily in your marketing. as I said, I focus very much on being a problem solver, not a problem understander. So I should say, not a solver. So, when you're delivering advice, that's when you're the problem solver. So I do focus very carefully on language. There are keywords I would just never use because I know that anybody that's, half a compliance manager will literally say to me, okay, that's got to come out. But I have worked with so many different compliance team members and managers and consultants. I've actually worked with one compliance lawyer and one compliance consultant as clients. So I learnt pretty swiftly what their attitude to things were. So that translated into me knowing, okay, well, there's a time for me to moderate tone and language, and I'm very careful. And I usually, when I work with clients, make sure there's a very strict approval process so that there's confidence that when we're okay to take the handbrake off and go ahead, that the client doesn't have to worry that we're going to breach in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, okay, I understand. I mean, advisors ultimately wouldn't provide advice without understanding someone's personal circumstances, and it's pretty hard to do that when in your marketing you're not speaking to one person, you're speaking to many. Yeah, so I guess compliance is one challenge, but what are the challenges and the things in the future you see with regards to technology and how we use that to connect with audiences? I mean, artificial intelligence is such a huge thing at the moment. It feels like it's exploded in every aspect, especially for financial services, the efficiencies it can provide. How do you see these sorts of tools shaping marketing to financial services clients in the future?
Yeah, look, I mean, technology isn't necessarily new, and I think we've been all using technology in various forms to execute business, but to also assist in building and growing our businesses. And as a creative, we do that as well. And so technology has only continued to improve over time, and we embrace it. Many people will easily put together their own Canva campaign, social media campaign, go the Aussies in creating such a powerful tool. But, there's a time and a place for when, a true creative process needs to be observed. And that's when I would brief a graphic designer and work more creatively and more organically. In respect of AI, look, I think what I'm conscious of is that if you don't embrace it and you don't understand it, then, it's not so much that you're going to get left behind, but it will become the power over you, not you are the power over it. So for me, it's, by embracing it and teaching it and making sure that its excellence is because of you, not not in spite of you or in place of you, then I think you've got the power and that's where it should be. So I think AI is not going to go away. I mean, it's been actually around for quite a while. We've just not seen it in the same way we've seen it right now. I think it has huge advantage, but I also believe that there's a time and a place to use it, and you should be, conscious in that, So it's just shouldn't be the standalone in your business because you are your business. AI is simply a tool to help you, execute or implement what you do.
And are there any other tools that are, as an advisor who's not working with a marketing consultant, what are some other tools that can be part of their wheelhouse to just help keep on top of their marketing? Because, for financial advisors, marketing can be like another language. I know it is for me. What are some basic tools or resources that could be helpful just to get the basics covered?
By far, one of the biggest issues for most advisors, aside from getting through, what I said, knowing the purpose, knowing who you are, knowing the people you want to serve, those three, they're probably the pivotal things. But by the time you get past that, you're really then at a point going, well, what is my strategy and what content should I be creating? from my perspective, that's by far the biggest challenge for most financial advisors and most advice practices. So, there are things like Canva, and they can, with a little bit of nous and a little bit of, YouTube, you can certainly learn how to use it. I think the other thing that is excellent now, and most licensees, support, will either provide some form of content library, or there are things like Advant or Your Knowledge Shop, or financial writers that will write pure content that they have a level of expertise in the profession, so they understand what you might be coming at. So if you were particularly wanting something around EFTs, they have the nous and the understanding and the research at their fingertips to put something together that you can use. So there's lots of content libraries, and I would steer people towards those. I think there's lots of apps and different things. The thing is with a lot of that stuff is that it can be a little bit of a black hole. So sometimes I really highly recommend start small, start with what you can do and you can understand, and grow from there, because otherwise you're just going to blow yourself out of the water and you'll fail at the first hurdle, at the first hurdle. And I think that will put you off from doing it going forward.
And I guess it's a bit of, all the gear, no idea, having too many tools at your fingertips, but what to post, what to share, how it's as I've heard you speak about before in many of the podcasts you've done, it comes back to the brand that you're looking to portray and connect with your clients. If a financial advisor was starting to build their brand right now, what's the first thing they need to focus on? Apart from all the tools, what's the first thing they need to focus on?
Yeah. So, one of the things that, the trends we identified over recent times, but particularly traveling into this year, is the scaling of personalization. So, once upon a time, people would put their brand first and they would stand behind their brand. And, that's what you were known for, and that works if you're a large corporate like a Coca-Cola or a McDonald's or, Commonwealth Bank, whatever, It doesn't necessarily work if you're an IFA. If a small to medium-sized business, people deal with people, and they want to know the person that sits not necessarily behind the brand, but alongside the brand. So I spend a lot of time getting, anyone I work with to, I do a personality traits test and get them to start to get to know themselves and almost, identify some of the not so hot traits as well as the really great traits that make them the fantastic financial advisors they are. And I think that's a really good place to start. Know who you are, because as I love my branding, but it will never walk in front of me. As far as I'm concerned, Genesis is because of me, and so it should always walk beside me. And I think that's applicable for everybody. But branding is a unique experience, and I really advocate the process of working with someone to help you through it. Knowing yourself is definitely a big priority. Knowing the impact you want to have, because not everybody's in this profession for the same reason. Usually they're similar, but usually the impact can be slightly different. And finally, and really, who do you want to do business with? As I said, we don't all suit everybody, and long gone are the days when it was a fits all type approach. Most businesses will niche in some form, and therefore their branding should suit that. So branding is really a unique process, and I think it's well invested, because it will stay with you for a very long time. A really long time. People don't change their brand overnight. They change it over a long period of time. So you want to love it from the beginning.
You touched on, small to medium-sized advisors and big corporates. Can you talk to in your experience, the different types of clients that you've worked with within the space? Do you particularly work with an IFA, or are you more geared towards the big corporates? Talk to me about your experience with the range of businesses within the industry.
Yeah, look, I would say over the years, 90% of my clients, 85 to 90% of my clients are IFAs, from one-man bands right through to, seriously large, advice practices with multiple advisors, large staff. So definitely in that space, I probably, I've dealt with a lot of corporates. I've worked with the associations. I've worked with a number of organizations that are, champions of the industry. I've worked with media. I've worked with lawyers as well, compliance lawyers, different things. So I've definitely worked with a lot of different types of businesses over the years, but I would say always probably the 80-20 rule applies. That 80% of them are really definitely my core market, and that is IFAs. And yeah, look, I've seen the whole, vertical integrated type model, right through to now we have, boutique licensees with, or, self-licensed businesses, so I've kind of seen it all when it comes to the licensing side of things. But that's also what makes it so unique to work with clients. I feel, their experience has been different, and I've learnt to adapt and adopt over the years. And yeah, I love working with financial advisors. That's where the fun is.
Is there a goal client out there that you haven't yet worked with that you'd love to, or you feel like you've experienced the range?
Mm.
And maybe even outside of financial services, is there a goal client you'd love to do a campaign for?
Well, I've been doing a little bit more work in the charitable space, and just assisting some charities, smaller charities that don't necessarily get large government funding, and don't necessarily have the branding that, the large, really well-known charities, and, that people sort of hear the name and know very well. So I love working with the smaller charities because they're desperate for help. They're like sponges. They just want to soak up everything that you can do to help them. And they were so willing to learn. So I definitely, outside of the profession, I love working with smaller charities to help them get their messages out there, and, to grow their donor base. But, it's just a pure joy to help those people. Um, I'm I'm on the precipice of just starting to work with an all-female advice practice, which is, in all my years, I haven't actually worked with an all-female advice practice. So that I'm really excited about, because I love, they're really innovative, and they've got a lot. Their journey is going to be incredible, and I'm so excited to be starting to work with them. So to me, they're quite unique because there's not a lot of all-female advice practices out there.
And
So that's probably my next bit.
Does the marketing change male versus female? I mean, traditionally financial services has historically been mostly made up of male advisors. The ratio is quite heavy towards males still, but it is changing to a point where we may see more female led. I mean, I'm currently in an all female practice as well. But is that something that's starting to change, and does that change the marketing?
Well, I think you can scan the room of an event, and, you'll see the number of females sitting in the room has shifted. I mean, we've obviously seen a huge shift in the change of a number of advisors in the industry, and we all know what's happened, and, the desecration of numbers is quite horrific, and, that's quite heartbreaking. But at the same token, what I have seen is a lot more women step up and step in. I can pick a brand usually, if it's a male only or, if they're a male-female mix, I can usually tell by the branding. But in saying that, I feel like, as I said, that scaling of personalization, I feel like people are a little bit more in touch and in tune with the fact that, the audience as a female, I may prefer to deal with, with a male advisor. My first advisor was a male. So, I think it's not so much about whether we're representing male or female, but making sure that we are using the correct emotional intelligence to appeal to the people that need the advice.
Yeah. So it's definitely, I mean, within the industry, advisors are evolving, but marketing is also evolving. I mean, you've touched on many times just the evolution from minimal technology to being so heavily tech-based. There's obviously, every year a different trend, especially with platforms like TikTok and Instagram. What's one trend that you think advisors should be paying attention to?
Look, I definitely, I've mentioned, upscaling your personalization several times, so I won't sit on that one. I do think they need to pay attention, that people do genuinely need to pay attention to AI and how they use it in their marketing, and, and the measure with which they use it. And other than that, I feel that, the world is so very online that, we need to provide access to content and to ourselves as easily as possible. So I think it's embracing the technology, but making sure that that content sits snugly within that, so that, you're making it as easy as possible for me, the future client or the existing client, to get to you. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's is an element of marketing, but it's also an element of smart business decisions. Because I think the more complex you make it for me to see you, to then get to you, then I'm less likely to make that effort. Less likely.
Yeah. I guess in all your years of working within this industry, you've been able to give some amazing advice to the people that you've worked with, the people that you know. But if you could cast back and speak to your younger self, which was only 30, 35 years ago, how many?
Oh, you're killing me.
You had to give a piece of advice about working in this space to your younger self, what do you think that would be? Wear shorter high heels?
Yes. Oh my goodness me. My obsession with shoes was yeah. Anyway, perhaps my super balance would be higher if I'd contributed to super instead of buying high heels.
As a financial advisor, that makes me shiver, but that's okay.
I suppose, look, I had some amazing mentors in my early days in marketing. My original marketing started not in financial services. It was actually working in the pet health industry. And which was lovely and all fluffy and lovely and things like that. But I had this amazing mentor, and he used to say to me, "A voice unused is always unheard." So if you don't use your voice, then no one's ever going to hear you. And I used to think that was a little bit of, yeah, okay, I'm not really so sure what that means, especially, because I don't usually have a problem articulating myself. Anyway, but I do feel like in our early days, we sometimes thrash around a lot and say a lot of stuff, but don't actually say the stuff we really need to say, the things we mean. And I do think that gets back to authenticity and having the confidence in yourself to go, well, this is who I am, and I'm okay to be me, because, not everyone's going to like me, but, if you happen to like me, then you can be very, very sure that when we partner up, I'm going to absolutely work in your corner. And I think that's the thing is, find your voice. That's the key.
Yeah, and going through the marketing and branding process really allows for that, doesn't it? So
Correct. That was probably the one thing that, even when I was a partner in a marketing agent and in a advertising agency, I was the only female. I had two male business partners, and I used to sit in the boardroom petrified to speak up when we were doing, brand reveals, or we were doing an advertising campaign for cockroach spray. And I remember sitting there terrified to speak up. And then I thought one day, well, I get in the car and drive home and think, well, what the hell? Like, I'm an owner, and I was 25, and I thought, if I don't find my voice now, there's zero chance of me ever finding it. And I just one day decided to speak up, and the room stopped and everyone listened, and then everyone started talking again, and the world didn't fall down around me. And I was okay. So I think it made me realize that, yes, I mean, that doesn't mean you speak for the sake of speaking, but I do think it's important to find your voice, and that's your personal brand. That's your branding, and that's your version of marketing.
Very sage advice. Something you've always taught me as a young one growing up, and also in my career as an advisor. You've been an absolute gem, Genesis. They were all the questions I had, and I think you've really provided a good exposure to what's on the other side of marketing for financial advisors, and your experience in the industry has no doubt helped countless of your clients, and with successful marketing campaigns. I know it's helped me many times, not just in marketing. But for next time, we'll have to have a focus on what your next campaign will be, and go from there.
That sounds like that's a wrap. Oh, look, I think it's been unique sitting in the guest chair. So thanks for hosting.
That's okay. You can have fun back now.
Thanks so much. I will be sure to include this in the edits. Thanks, Hayley. In the guest chair. So thanks for hosting.
That's okay. You can have fun back now.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and be sure to follow me, Jenny Pearse, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, wherever you enjoy joining the conversation. Can't wait to connect with you. I'm looking forward to sharing some more Genesis Gems with you in the next session. See you then.